Lesson 10: Building a Nation with Words and Ideas. What have we already learned? First, Benjamin Franklin wrote Poor Richard's Almanac. The almanac included stories, poems, as well as puzzles, jokes, lots of advice, and many wise sayings. Second, we learned that Franklin was wise. He was an inventor, he was a painter, he was a founding father, and he was a representative of the colonies. Can you name some of the things that Franklin invented? And four, what is something that you can do today to prepare for tomorrow? Don't leave till tomorrow what you can do today. There are four vocabulary words for this lesson. The first word is anniversary. Anniversary is a noun. An anniversary is a date that is observed annually. For example, a wedding date. The second vocabulary term is architecture. Architecture is a noun, and architecture is the design and construction of buildings. Our third vocabulary word is domed. Domed is an adjective. Its shape like a hemisphere, resembling the top of someone's head. And the fourth word is university. University is a noun, and a university is a school for learning beyond the high school level. Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Franklin enjoyed the company of another patriot, Thomas Jefferson from Virginia. Jefferson was often the youngest person in the room when the founders met in Philadelphia, whereas Franklin was often the oldest. Like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson was always ready to serve his country, but the place he most liked to be was at his home with his family. Remember our saying, "Mid pleasures and places though we may roam, be it ever so humble, there's no place like home." The picture you are looking at, boys and girls, is a picture of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home. You can visit Monticello today if you ever take a tour of the East Coast. When Thomas Jefferson was a young lawyer, he started building a house close to the farm where he grew up in Virginia. Built on a little hill, he named it Monticello, which means little mountain in Italian. He worked on it for many years before, during, and after the war. The picture you are looking at is what the house looks like today. Jefferson traveled in Europe and brought back many ideas from France and Italy. Because of Monticello and some other buildings that Jefferson designed, Jefferson is called the father of the American architecture. In fact, Jefferson was one of the people who worked on the design of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Boys and girls, you'll notice the dome ceiling. We also see that dome ceiling on the nation's capital, on the White House. We also see it in a lot of our government buildings. Our California state capitol has a dome ceiling. That is taken from Italy. Italy has a lot of churches where it's the dome. You can go to Duomos and they have giant domes. So Jefferson took his ideas from Italian architecture. He loved learning about the world, boys and girls. Like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson liked to invent things. For his house, he invented a pulley system that opened doors and a mechanical clock that kept track of the days and of the week. He also invented a dumbwaiter, which is a shelf that could be piled high with food and dishes and raised from the kitchen downstairs up to the dining room upstairs, then lowered back down with empty dishes when the meal was over. An elevator for food. Interesting. This is a picture of Jefferson's copy machine. Boys and girls, you know that teachers use copy machines quite a bit. They are much quicker than this copy machine. We run down to the teacher's lounge and we throw in a copy and several come out. Well, we have this invention today because of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was one of the most important writers of the colonies. Remember, he was the author of the Declaration of Independence. Because he wrote so many important papers and letters, he wanted to be able to make copies for himself. So Jefferson bought a copy machine from his friend, Charles Willson Peale. It was one of the first copy machines ever made. As Jefferson wrote at his desk, a second pen was automatically writing the same thing right beside him, so he could continue his work from home. Thomas Jefferson invented a lap desk that he could carry with him on horseback that could hold all of his paperwork and office tools. After the Constitutional Convention and the election of George Washington as the country's first president, Thomas Jefferson returned to Virginia to work on Monticello. When he was not at Monticello, often he was off representing his country, sharing ideas both in America and in Europe. Remember, boys and girls, that Jefferson could write a letter and hand a second copy right away without even going to a copy machine. Presidents Washington, Adams, and Jefferson. George Washington served as President of the United States for 8 years. When he retired to his home, Mount Vernon, another one of the founding fathers named John Adams took his place, becoming America's second president. John Adams, boys and girls, is who our school is named after, John Adams Academy. Thomas Jefferson became John Adams' vice president. 4 years later, Thomas Jefferson became our nation's third president. In the 8 years that he was president, Jefferson did many things to help the young nation grow. Boys and girls, we do not discuss Adams a lot in this course of study, but I highly recommend finding out a little bit more about who John Adams was and why he was so important to our nation. You will learn about John Adams as you can continue your studies, but right now our focus is on Franklin, Washington, and Jefferson. However, John Adams is very important too. Boys and girls, you are looking at a picture of the University of Virginia. Again, notice the dome ceiling. The dome ceiling influenced Jefferson in many of his design. And again, this architectural design comes from Europe. You see the domed ceilings a lot throughout Europe, specifically Rome and Italy. One of the things that Thomas Jefferson believed in most was having a public education. That means that you and me could all be educated. He realized how fortunate he had been having a chance to attend excellent schools all of his life, but he knew that not everybody could afford to do so. Perhaps Jefferson's greatest project was planning for a public college in his state of Virginia. He designed the buildings, chose the subjects to be taught, and raised money to build the University of Virginia. The university was built on a friend's farm just down the hill from his home, Monticello, so that Jefferson could watch it being built. And boys and girls, University of Virginia is a college that you can attend today. President Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson died on the afternoon of July 4th, 1826, just hours before the death of one of his very good friends, John Adams. The second and third presidents of the United States of America died on the 50th anniversary of Independence Day. Boys and girls, think about that. July 4th is the day that Jefferson and Adams signed the Declaration of Independence, which started this revolution to what is the United States, where we live now. 50 years after they signed it, both of those men passed away on July 4th. Just an interesting fact. Heads and tails of a nickel. Like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson is remembered in many ways today. Some of our nickels or 5 cents have a picture of Jefferson on one side of them and a picture of a domed building on the other. Can you guess what building that is? That's right. It's his beloved home, Monticello. Next time you get a nickel, take a look at it closely and see if you can see Monticello and Jefferson's portrait. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, boys and girls. I'm enjoying teaching you history. Have a wonderful day.